The James Show Podcast.
He shocked him a little bit because they threw him the ball, metaphorically speaking, rhetorically speaking. Hey, how appalled are you by the way immigrants are being treated under this current administration? And he's like, well, look, I love this country and immigrants need to respect its laws and they need to behave like a guest in someone else's house. You know, keep things clean, make your bed, don't complain, and be grateful. And so after, he didn't whip them around. He didn't insult anybody. There's no pejoratives. He didn't throw any rhetorical Molotov cocktails. But it's fun to watch, and I know you enjoy this too, watching these people work out the cognitive dissonance in their head. They're like, wait, this isn't an immigrant, and he doesn't think Trump's literally Hitler. Yikes. How do they explain this to themselves? Because they're never going to go, oh, well, maybe my worldview's wrong. Well, maybe they're just enforcing immigration laws as they're written on the books, and there's no real injustice done here. No, they can't say that. So you're going to hear like a double team of Whoopi and Sonny Hostin, and I think you'll hear another one chirping in there. This is their response to Arnold saying what is basic common sense to you and me. It's just a wild turn of events for the ladies of The View.
90% of the people who come here are trying to do the right thing.
They're less likely to commit crime.
Hang on. No, she's just making up a statistic. 90% are trying to do the right thing. How do you even survey for that? Or you put a microphone in front of someone. Are you trying to do the right thing? 100% will say yes. So first, she's just manufacturing the statistic out of the air. Sonny Hostin's about to pop in with, yes, immigrants are less likely to commit crimes than citizens. Okay, you're conflating legal immigrants and illegal immigrants. It's a very obvious intellectual shortcut into actually dealing with the situation on the ground in reality, but also for the illegal immigrants that do commit crimes. You're still sticking up for them. Anyway, here we go.
90% of the people who come here are trying to do the right thing.
They're less likely to commit crimes.
And a lot of what's happening right now is people are getting snatched who shouldn't be snatched out of the country, people who have visas, people who have all those things. So we want all the right people. We don't want people who are doing bad stuff.
But they are less likely, immigrants are much less likely to commit crimes in this country than actually American-born citizens. And the other thing I just wanted to say is that Governor Newsom did not ask for the National Guard to come to, the federal government to come to California. There are 9,000 local law enforcement officers in California. Did he really? Every president has to follow the law.
I mean, look.
That's so great. I could just listen to that all day. I love when they're presented with facts and a guess that they didn't expect, and you got to hear them try and wheel and deal in real time because they didn't have time to prepare for that. They thought Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to be on their side. They thought he was going to, be deferential toward the non-Americans since he's a non-American. But make no mistake, there is a Grand Canyon of difference between the way the American people feel about legal immigrants and illegal immigrants, and to conflate the two is just dishonest. Lawrence in Grapevine, you're on WBAP. Go.
Man, my brother, you said a mouthful when you say the way they try to articulate their argument, just outright dishonest. And I'm tired of my Latino brothers and sisters trying to equate their plight with the plight of African Americans. We got to keep it real. You people, y'all invade the border. We were brought here in chains. Don't mix the two. This is why black people ain't out here supporting that foolishness. If you're going to come to this country, you come through the front door. Nobody is going to say nothing to you. But you're going to come through the back door and make demands? Hey, I don't support the illegal immigration, the gay agenda, endless wars. I'm pro-American. I'm pro-family. And I don't see nothing that these Democrats, I call them Luciferians, because you got to be rolling with the devil to promote what these illegals are doing. That little black girl, Air Force cadet, up here in Grapevine, killed by 2 illegals from Venezuela. God help the illegals if they harm one of my family members, because you know what? Right is right, wrong is wrong. We are all law-abiding citizens. We all do the right thing. Do you think I'm going to put up with somebody coming here illegally doing the wrong thing, perpetrating violence on my family? This is what these idiots on the left don't get. We are pro-America. We pro-law enforcement. We support the men and women in blue and in the green. And these doggone illegals, they come in here to take over. They ain't coming here for a helping hand, because if they would, they'd do like the people from Nepal. They'd do like the people from Pakistan, from India. All the people who come here and do it the right way. They mad as hell at these damn illegals. So the left, hey, man, you know what? I don't even like talking about this no more, because you know what? The whole conversation is disingenuous. You cannot come to no country and get away with what we let these rascals get away with. You can't do it. Go to Brazil and burn the Brazilian flag and fly the American flag. You'll be coming back in pieces. They'll kill you. All the things that they doing, come on, brother. You know, I'm tired, because right is right and wrong is wrong. And color ain't got nothing to do with it. And I'm tired of them trying to say their plight is the same as black people. No. And I don't want to hear no more doggone illegals say what they built in this country. This country was built by slaves, African-American slaves. It was not built by Mexicans, illegals. They couldn't take it. And here's one for the books. When was the last time in our history had mass hangings of Mexicans or migrants at them? Never. Since when did the Ku Klux Klan go after illegals? Never happened. So these rascals coming here trying to play that sympathy card, hey, brothers, right back. If you ain't pro-America, if you ain't pro-law enforcement, and if you hate on us and don't want to do the right thing, get out. Get out. That's just simple. We ain't got no argument. You go to you and we do us.
That's a great call. That's Lawrence and Grapevine. Now, there has been some anti-immigrant violence and hangings and lynchings scattered throughout American history. It's not like the number is zero, but not like they went after black people with the Klan. He's absolutely right on that point. I just don't want to get any fact checkers saying, well, no, they hung a bunch of Chinese people in San Francisco in 1861 or whatever. Just speaking in absolutes, I have to put disqualifiers on there so people don't call me a hack. But no, the points you were making, all correct. And look, white people kind of bristle at that too. When people say try and co-opt the civil rights movement and act like they're plight. It's just like black Americans. No, it's not. No, it's not. There was never signed. They didn't build the separate bathrooms on every single restaurant in the Jim Crow South to make Mexicans poo in a different room. They did that to black people. What is their deal? Like, in hindsight, that is so weird. Like, what you can't relieve yourself in the same room as someone who's a different race. That's Democrats were so weird now, but they were even worse 100 years ago. Believe that. We're talking about immigration right now. A lot going on with the local Brown Berets, DFW, alerting people from ICE raids. They got in a back and forth with the president of the Tarrant County GOP, Beau French, who was on the show earlier. And now I'm just throwing the question out there after we heard Arnold Schwarzenegger on The View. You know, how far are these people going to support illegals? People who aren't supposed to be here anyway. People who are breaking the law. Well, it's not a criminal penalty, so it's not technically illegal. It's a civil penalty, and it's still illegal. But these people that are alerting social media of ICE raids, how is that not interfering with law enforcement? How is that not felonious behavior in itself? 800-288-9227. Andrew in Georgetown, you're on WBAP.
Good afternoon. What if you were to flip it around? I'll just use in Austin, if you just say Rainey Street or 6th Street, if I was just to call on a Thursday night and say, hey, there's going to be ICE raids at several of the restaurants. I'm not sure exactly which ones they are, but there's going to be ICE raids. Would that be illegal?
I don't know. I'd like it. See,
if everybody did that, I mean, how many people might not show up to work?
Well, the thing is it coming from a group whose modus operandi, like their mission, is to protect people from ICE raids, or is this just Andrew in Georgetown putting a rumor on Facebook?
This is Andrew from Georgetown putting a rumor on Facebook to get illegals not to go to those businesses. You know, to go home during that way and punish the businesses. Okay,
so there's not actually an ICE raid happening. You're just doing this to throw a hurdle in their normal day?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, then absolutely not. That's not illegal. You're not interfering with the law enforcement operation.
Okay. Well, I was just wondering. I mean, imagine if people started doing that and people didn't start showing up to work.
I like the way you think, Andrew. That's pretty pretty good.
Any ideas out there? But,
all right. Hey, Andrew gets a field goal. That's 3 points for Andrew. On that, Garrett.
Go, buddy. You get a touchdown every time.
Oh, thank you so much. You're very kind. That's Andrew in Georgetown kicking butt. Curtis in Plano, you're on WBAP. Go.
Hey, James. Thanks for taking my call. I'm just concerned. I have an acquaintance here in the Denton County and Frisco areas where he works, a Vietnamese community. And this man's been here for over 40 years. His grandfather and he came over with his grandfather was one of the boat people that escaped South Vietnam after the war. Well, he came over as a minor. I don't know what kind of trouble he got into, but he got in trouble with the law, was arrested, and had deportation orders at that time, back in the early 80s, to go back to Vietnam. Well, the North Vietnamese would not allow any boat people to be shipped back into Vietnam. So he's been here for over 40 years. Has to check in with ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, annually, and just maintains contact with them. Well, last Tuesday, he went for his annual appointment, and they took him. They arrested him, and they sent him to a facility here in town, and he's in confinement waiting deportation. And he's been an active member of the community for over 40 years, never had any more influence or problems with the law. And I don't even know what the thing was that he did back, when he was a minor. But, I mean, this is a gross miscarriage of justice for someone that was, arrested as a minor.
Why? Well, hang on. Why is it
done time?
You're coming to the conclusion it's a gross miscarriage of justice.
Because obviously he did serve something. I don't know what happened back then because I never heard the base of the story. But I know now that he's checked in annually for 40 years and never had a deportation summons before. And now all of a sudden, I just think the pendulum is swinging, and there may be a group of community members that are getting swept away that may or may not deserve this kind of treatment. I mean,
he sounds like he doesn't fit the regular template of what we imagine when we think of criminal illegal aliens.
Exactly.
And okay, so let me ask you, if you think this is a gross miscarriage of justice, what is the statute of limitations on something like that?
I don't know. See, I think maybe he's even a green card carrier. He's just not a citizen, so I'm not sure. I mean, I wish I knew what crime was committed, but as a minor,
Well, see, it sounds emotional when you
did something as a minor, would you want to be held account 40 years later? So, oh, you're going to jail for it now. It's just kind of strange.
Yeah. So the thing that caught my attention there is the extra adjectives in there. It wasn't a miscarriage of justice. It was a gross miscarriage of justice. And so it felt like, an emotional reaction to something that I was trying to, just put in black and white. Okay. What's the statute of limitations on that? If they've been here for 40 years and had a clean record and they only had one crime 40 years ago, should they be allowed to stay? Like, what would your rules be then? How would you draw the map?
Exactly. I have no idea, but I just feel like if that kind of precedent is set for people in that kind of situation, I would support Trump 100%. I support ICE 100%. And it's just, if people like that get swept up in this dragnet, I think they could lose, popular support pretty quick. If people, that were otherwise,
I think most people are okay with that. I think most people are okay with if you haven't become a naturalized citizen in the last 40 years and you do have a criminal record, then you know what? They're okay with that baby getting thrown out with the bathwater, because the rules that we're working on, if you have a criminal record and you're not a citizen, you gotta go. And this is probably the best case scenario of a guy that, America would probably be better off having him stay. But if losing him means we get to lose all the rest of them, I'm pretty sure most of America's okay with that.
Yeah, I'm not so sure. I mean,
you're definitely not.
Because they're painting it. No, I'm just saying. Painting it.
I gotta go though, Curtis.
Rid of new people.
I'll grant you this. I'll grant you this. You're not the only person who thinks like that. The ladies on The View think like that. A lot of people that I talk to on a very shallow level say similar things. I hear a lot of people on TV saying that. Other radio stations saying that. So you're not alone. But I think for the people who supported Trump based on his immigration policy, this is an acceptable loss. The tariffs are still happening in the background, even though it's not one of the top headlines. How is this affecting your drug prices? Well, I have the perfect guy to answer the question. Dr. Bill Hennessy from Care Guide is back on the James Show. Welcome back, Dr. Bill. Have we seen prices go up much so far?
No. And this is much to do about nothing is my researched conclusion.
Well, we have the concern that so many of our drugs are made overseas, and so many of the places where our drugs are made are getting hit with tariffs, and so they're going to have to pass that along to the consumers. Well, why haven't we seen an increase yet?
Well, what we got here is this recent article that got us together today is about the 15% of brand name drugs. This has nothing to do with the generics. The generics largely have components in them from China and India. I myself admit I had to do research. I didn't know where we got our brand name drugs from. The three countries that make up nearly half of it are Ireland, Germany, and Switzerland. So upon research, the tariffs on drugs from those countries is 0%.
Okay. Yeah, well, I think about it. What are some of the big drug companies? There's Merck and there's Bayer, and I think, aren't both of those German?
Yeah, you're very good.
Look at you. Was that your German accent?
It was a weak effort. I'm Irish, so,
Well, who's the Irish group that's sending us name brand drugs?
Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Bristol Myers Squibb.
That is all news to me. I had no idea. All right. Well, then that's pretty much good news. What about all the concern about how so many drug precursors come from China and some of these other countries?
Well, look, those precursors, again, are largely being used in the generic drugs. Common things happen commonly. Generic drugs for common conditions. Diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, reflux. Look, you get most of those generics for $4 a month at Walmart or other big box stores. So, okay, put a 10% tariff on them, or maybe they're going to be exempt from China too. But now it's $4.40. So I don't see that much of a concern. Plus, President Trump signed the executive order on favored nation drug pricing. The U.S. deserves and gets the same best price, whatever other country out there has that's better than us, we're going to take it.
We're talking with Bill Hennessy from Care Guide. CGASaves.com is his website, and he just helps people with their medical bills, keeping their healthcare costs low. Is there anything in the big, beautiful bill or some other iteration in D.C. that you have your eye on?
In terms of healthcare right now?
Yeah.
Right now, I do not. I'm keeping an eye. We're talking drugs today.
Right.
The Department of Justice and the Federal Trade Commission years ago have both sued the three big pharmacy benefit management companies, which are owned by United Healthcare, Cigna, and Aetna. So talk about cooking the books. There's a strong financial misalignment. Those are now profit centers. So you thought you had one middleman. You now have United Healthcare plus Optum RX that makes $250 billion a year. So I want to see where these lawsuits lead to damages and better behavior, because I actually think it's going to.
All right. Dr. Bill Hennessy, for the people who are complaining about their drug prices right now, there's a lot of people listening who already have prescriptions, and they'd like to know if they can save any money on what they have going now. What would you tell them? Where do they start?
Well, I got about 4 or 5 quick things.
Okay.
Seek generic versus brand. 2, consider the dose. It may well be just much less to pay for 2 5-milligram tablets and take 2 pill swallows instead of 1 10-milligram. As crazy as that sounds.
That does sound crazy.
Yeah, biosimilar. So you might have 8 drugs that are all in the same blood pressure category, but 1 or 2 of them may cost less. Mail order. I just told you the 3 big middlemen are from 3 publicly traded health insurance companies. You could do internet searches for mail order and get them delivered to your doorstep without those middlemen, and all of a sudden it's more affordable. And number 5 is get them 3 months at a time instead of 1. It's an old playbook from Sam's Club or Costco. Buy in bulk, pay less.
All right, that all sounds like pretty solid advice. Dr. Bill Hennessy, CGASaves.com is his website. Care Guide is the name of his company. If you already have some big bills or you anticipate some big bills coming up, call him. That's what his company does. Thank you, Dr. Bill.
You're welcome.
So Scott Adams is the creator of Dilbert. He was on the show a few weeks ago when the surprise announcement of Joe Biden's advanced cancer diagnosis had a lot of people scratching their head. And he came out and shocked the world because he said, yeah, I have that. That exact same cancer. I have stage 4 prostate cancer, which has spread to my bones. And he was making the case that for him, this was a long, drawn-out process. And it seems wildly unlikely that Joe Biden would just magically develop this late stage of a cancer in the last 4 months since he's been out of White House medical care. But that aside, we were all kind of shocked to know this guy has just a few months to live. In fact, he's probably going to die this summer. That's what he expects. And so he has sort of this clarity of thought now where when he puts out videos now, go check them out. And in his latest one, this was getting passed around. People were pulling out this little chunk from his live video yesterday. And I saw it live, and then I already knew I was going to talk about it on the show. And then I saw other people passing around. So this is going to be a conversation to be had here. Scott Adams, creator of Dilbert, explains why Trump derangement syndrome should be considered a real mental disorder. In fact, being put officially in the books as a legit mental disorder.
I would argue that we should see it as a mental disorder and that the elderly are just more prone to it, just like Alzheimer's and other stuff. And I saw a post by Meg Brock, who was asking the question on X, when is Trump derangement syndrome going to be officially added to the DSM-5 to make it an official diagnosis? And so I went to Grok to find out, is it already in the literature? And then Grok says it lacks defined symptoms, diagnostic criteria, or empirical evidence required for a legitimate disorder. To which I say, isn't it a lot like addiction? If I said to you, you have a drinking problem, how would you define it as a problem versus a hobby? And the answer is usually if it interferes with your life. So if your drinking has an impact on your life, as in you lose your job, you lose your relationships, you spend all your money, you wake up in a ditch, well, then you've got a drinking problem. If you had 2 drinks on the weekend with your friends and then took a Uber home, we would mostly say you're just somebody who has a hobby and you don't have a problem. But don't you think TDS is exactly like that? If somebody simply prefers a Democrat over Trump, I would say, oh, well, that's just a political preference. But if somebody is crying and shaking and they feel like he's going to become a king and he's going to lock people up in prison camps, isn't that interfering with your actual life and happiness? And wouldn't that be super easy to diagnose if you were a therapist? You could just say, does it affect your life? Do you wake up in the morning shaking and crying? If the answer is yes, then you've got a mental health disorder.
So I am a big fan of Dr. Drew Pinsky, and years ago when he was on Loveline, he used to have to explain this over and over and over. The line between when a hobby or something that you do for fun becomes an addiction. And that's perfect what Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert, just explained there in drinking. If you're losing your job because you're drinking, you probably have an addiction. And to put it in more sterile terms, continued use or continued behavior in the face of negative consequences is when it becomes a disorder. And so is it disrupting your life really is a pretty good metric. And when he said that yesterday, I thought of the audio I had played for you on Monday's show of a lady from the No Kings rally on Saturday.
I'm just so scared. I'm 74 years old. I worry about everything. And I just am so scared and upset, and I don't understand why people voted for this person.
I mean, I kind of laugh at her, but she is having like a loss of quality of life there, because if you're worried about a king, well, you're worried about something that's not real. You know, if you're worried about a wolf that's in the room with you, legit worry. If you're worried about a wolf and a wolf isn't in the room with you or within 100 miles of you, that's when you have a mental disorder. So if you think you're literally fighting Hitler and it's ruining your life, it's making you cry, you're scared to leave your house, you have changed your behavior otherwise for something that's not even true, I think he makes a pretty solid point. Now, I'm going to talk about this more in depth on tomorrow's show, but it'll be earlier in the show, so you'll probably miss it. It's a good excuse to come back and check out the podcast, because I think there's going to be a lot of people with some pretty strong opinions on whether or not Trump derangement syndrome could be a mental disorder. And I don't want to limit it to Trump. For you people who were crying or thinking that Obama is an antichrist and he was some paid-off Manchurian candidate who was basically a demon and it ruined your life, okay, this applies to you too. For all the people that thought George W. Bush was literally Hitler and Reagan was literally Hitler, this isn't Trump specific. But if you get so worked up over politics that you're crying into a Fox News camera on a Saturday instead of enjoying a Father's Day weekend with your family, you might just have a mental disorder. Stick around. Coming up next, the great one, Mark Levin. I'm James Parker. This has been The James Show on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM, WBAP.
The James Show Podcast.